You hear it almost every day. You live with it like you breathe. It's part of your existence. You earn it, you spend it, and sometimes you even worry about it. But have you ever stopped to think about how something could have such a powerful impact on every part of your life? Or let me put it this way. Have you ever really thought about what finance actually is? Most people think finance is just about money. But in truth, finance is one of humanity's oldest inventions, older than coins, older than banks, even older than writing itself. It might sound unbelievable, but it's true. And if you want to truly understand what finance means and how markets or investments actually work, then hit that subscribe button. Because today, we're going to explain finance so simply that even a 10-year-old could understand it. So if you're ready, let's go all the way back to a time before the word finance even existed. Thousands of years ago, imagine a small village. There were no coins, no credit cards, no banks. People traded what they had for what they needed. A farmer gave wheat to a potter in exchange for clay pots. A fisherman traded his catch for bread. But there was a big problem in this simple system that no one saw coming. What if the potter didn't need wheat that day? That's when humans realized something. They needed a better way than simple trade. They invented the concept of value. Instead of just swapping goods, they began keeping records. You owe me. I owe you. These promises were the first form of finance. Over time, societies began using objects everyone agreed had value. Shells, metals, stones. Eventually, those objects became money. But money was only a tool. The real invention was the idea of managing value, protecting it, saving it, lending it, and growing it through investment. That's what finance truly is, the art of managing what you have today to reach what you want tomorrow. So the next time someone tells you, finance is too complicated, remember this. It all started with two people agreeing on trust and value. And that simple idea forever changed the way the world understands finance. In the first episode, we talked about how finance was born in its simplest form. In this episode, we'll start exploring what happened after the age of bartering. If you're ready, let's begin. Barter had lost its appeal. People were now moving away from exchanging goods and toward using things that represented value. But as this system grew and expanded, a new problem appeared. How could people keep these valuable items safe and protected? Think about it. Just like carrying dozens of gold coins, today would be risky and heavy. It was the same back then. That's why people first turned to those they could trust. Merchants and temples stepped in, because people were already storing their goods in temples. These places became more than just religious centers. They became the world's first examples of banking. Priests would keep people's gold safe and give them a written note in return. That note meant, this amount of gold is stored here. Over time, people realized something important. Those notes were just as valuable as the gold itself, because everyone trusted that real gold existed behind them. And that's how the first idea of paper money was born. This also introduced the concept that value could be recorded, not just exchanged. Finance was no longer based only on trust. It now required systems of records and documentation. Thanks to these records, people could borrow, trade, and grow their wealth. For example, a merchant traveling to another city no longer needed to carry gold. He just showed the note he received from the temple. This system brought incredible movement and power to the economy at the time. But with movement and power always comes responsibility. As temples began managing money, they slowly transformed into banks, gaining enormous influence, just like modern banks today. And throughout history, that power has created both great prosperity and devastating crises. The foundation of the banking system we use today was built back then. It's a reminder that money is not just a tool, but a chain of trust. Because at its core, finance still depends on the same ancient idea. Value exists only if people believe in it. In the next episode, we'll see how that belief built mighty empires, and sometimes destroyed them too. Finance was no longer the concern of farmers or merchants. It had become the measure of power for kings and empires. Wealth no longer came from land, but from the speed at which money moved. The expansion of the Roman Empire, the endurance of the Ottoman Empire, and the rise of Europe's overseas trading empires all shared one hidden force: the constant flow of money. These massive fortunes brought with them a concept that still shapes today's global economy: interest. When people lent money, they wanted a little more in return. At first, it seemed fair. I took a risk, so I deserve a reward. But over time, some turned it into a tool of exploitation. As interest rates rose, debtors grew poorer, while the rich became even richer. This created both economic and moral conflict. Religious authorities tried to ban interest. Philosophers debated it, and rulers searched for balance. But human nature never changed. Some always sought to win at any cost, while others struggled just to repay what they owed. Yet despite all that, finance was never entirely a bad force. The same system that caused inequality also fueled progress. Through interest, entrepreneurs found capital, trade expanded, and new ports, roads, and cities were built. That's why finance has always been both one of humanity's most creative and most destructive powers. How we use it determines the course of history. In the next episode, we'll see how this power accelerated with the Industrial Revolution, transforming into the modern economy and connecting the entire world into one financial network. In the 18th century, the world began a massive transformation, the birth of modern society, when steam engines, factories, and new production techniques emerged. A new power started to rise that would change the course of history: capital. Wealth and value were no longer tied to land. They now came from the power of production. But building huge factories required massive amounts of money. Individuals or small groups couldn't afford it on their own. That's when people found a new solution: partnership. Multiple investors began pooling their money together to fund a single idea. This is how the first joint stock companies in history were born. Everyone could own a small share of a big enterprise. In fact, this system laid the foundation for modern stock markets. Cities like London, Amsterdam, and Paris became the centers of global trade. People were no longer just buying goods. They were buying ideas. Once again, finance evolved. This time, gold coins passing from hand to hand were replaced by stocks, bonds, and bank loans. Capital grew rapidly, but with every opportunity comes risk. Some companies made enormous profits, while others collapsed. For the first time, people began hearing the words economic crisis. Yet despite the risks, this period became a turning point in human progress. Finance was no longer the privilege of the rich. It had become a force shaping everyone's life. From workers' wages to farmers' seed loans, from city lights to new inventions, everything now revolved around finance. The Industrial Revolution transformed money from a simple medium of exchange into something much greater. Finance had become the engine of innovation, entrepreneurship, and dreams. In the next episode, we'll see how this explosive growth created a global financial network, one that made it possible to manage the entire world's economy from a single place. The Industrial Revolution built factories, but the digital age built something invisible: a network of information. Finance no longer lives on paper. It lives on screens. Banks are no longer just buildings. They've become software. People buy things without ever touching cash, sending money across the world with a single click. In the 2000s, the internet became the new stage for finance. Online banking and digital payment systems made life easier. We stopped counting money and started tracking its movement. But this convenience led to a new question. What if we could manage money without banks at all? In 2009, a group of programmers created a digital currency called Bitcoin. It was a system controlled by no government and no bank, and it sparked one of the biggest revolutions in financial history. Trust no longer rested in people but in mathematics. Through a technology called blockchain, every transaction was recorded. Yet no one could control the system alone. This change transformed not just money, but the entire philosophy of finance. Value was no longer measured only by gold, silver, or paper, but by information, data, and innovation. Yet just like in the past, the same question remains. No matter who controls finance, what truly matters is how we use it. Because as technology evolves, finance can either build a fairer world or become an uncontrollable force. The future of finance might not live in our pockets anymore. It may exist in code, in artificial intelligence, and maybe even in our thoughts. And who knows? One day, we might have to redefine what the word money really means. For thousands of years, humanity has chased the same question. What is value? Who decides it? And how do we protect it? We began this journey with simple bartering. Then came gold, banks, stock markets, and digital currencies. But through every era, one thing never changed: trust. Trust has always been the foundation of finance. Without it, people couldn't trade, invest, or even look to the future with hope. Today, technology has evolved. Finance lives on screens, and algorithms make decisions. Yet, in truth, we're still doing what that first farmer and potter once did: sharing value. The history of finance is really the story of humanity itself. It's a story of greed, courage, fear, and hope. Every crisis reflects human mistakes, and every innovation reflects human dreams. Maybe in the future, money will exist only in digital form. Maybe banks will transform into AI systems. But the real question is, can finance, with all its power, continue to serve humanity? Remember, it's not the systems that define finance, it's us, the people who use them. Money, value, and trust only matter when they're in human hands. That's why finance isn't just the mirror of the economy. It's the mirror of humanity. And that mirror will always remind us. True wealth isn't about how much money you have, but how you use it. We've traveled from the past to the present. Now it's your turn to make what you've learned truly meaningful. Because the history of finance isn't just a story to be read. It's a future that's still being written every single day.